welcome back to a very special episode of the What the Falk podcast. It's been quite a while since we've had a former player interview, but we're back with a bang with today's guest. Arguably, Sunderland's most loved player of the last decade. Welcome to the show, Aiden McGeady. Aiden, how are you doing? You all right?
Very good, thanks. Yeah, very good, thanks. How are you getting on?
Getting by, mate. It's kind of that January where I think Christmas is over, so things are a bit boring, and it's a month that's dragged on quite a bit. But, just before the Christmas period, you retired after a 20-year career. So I think best place to start is how's retirement treating you, mate?
Yeah, it's been strange adapting to not having any routine every day. So, but in a weird way, I've been actually busier than I probably was when I was playing because you're in a routine every day of going to training, coming home, and then you're kind of doing stuff after training. Or but everything's tied to football. But now I'm kind of every day because I don't have a routine. There's things I've got on a Tuesday, things maybe like jump out on a Wednesday. I'm going to watch games. I'm doing a course. You're doing like I'm just kind of everywhere. So but it's been good. It's been refreshing. I'm not really missing the football, to be honest with you. Which is, listen, it might change, but the kind of last year I had was quite difficult in terms of the actual football. I enjoyed this. I enjoyed other things off the pitch, but the football I found quite difficult. So that was probably the sign, and probably my body telling myself, not my body, but my head telling me that it probably was time to call it a day, because when you kind of start falling out of love and not enjoying the thing you're doing, there's not really much point in carrying on for the sake of doing it. So, but yeah, I've been busy, and it's actually been good, really good actually.
In terms of your career at Sunderland, I try to sit down and discuss, like, think of questions like of the 6 years you were at Sunderland and the time you had, and it's really hard to condense. But the one thing I wanted to do, a bit of an icebreaker, I feel like a lot of the players I've spoke to that, you were there at the time, I feel like a lot of the preview shows that we did when you were here, I'd ask, the opposition fans, I'd ask former players, who's our best player? Who do you think's our key player? And 9 times out of 10, the answer would be yourself. But out of the time you had at Sunderland, who do you rate as the best player that you played with?
It's a difficult one because I'm thinking back to when I first joined. We had a lot of
Hmm.
players left over from that Premier League season.
Yeah.
Although I probably wouldn't include any of them in that because we performed really poorly that year, even though we had a lot of good players. After that, I would probably there's a few that spring to mind. So I could probably say Maja was probably one in that first season. It was absolutely amazing for us. And he's still doing well. He's
Yeah.
still doing well, but I thought he would really kick on. I was obviously gutted when he left us because at the end of the day, it probably ended up costing us promotion that season. Maja would be one. I'd say probably Jack Clark would be another. Jack Clark performed very, very well for the team, and he actually had to, which was the good thing. I think he knew that after he had a couple of kind of unsuccessful loans away from Spurs, came in and done really well. And I thought, he's actually found a place where he can actually perform again, and he's actually found a home, and he's enjoying his football. Jack Clark would be another.
Where does Roberts come into it? I've always kind of seen you as really similar
Uh,
players.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, at the end of the day, listen, Patrick's got loads of ability. Probably the closest thing, not in terms of the way that in terms of his ability, but the way that he moves is probably the closest thing to probably Messi in the way that he moves with the ball.
Yeah.
Training and things like that, he doesn't do tricks. He just kind of can glide past players and use his shoulders to body feint players. Patrick, listen, he's in terms of ability, like yeah, he's got if not more ability than Jack Clark. But Jack is probably that last season in the Championship. Jack, you know, his numbers were going through the roof. Whereas Patrick's a bit older than Jack as well, and for him to be in the same level, I think he would have to be posting those types of numbers. But he's obviously still very influential in the team, and listen, a very, very good player. But obviously, I'm just basing it on the time that I was there with them.
Yeah.
Patrick would probably come into the conversation as well. I think Ross Stewart, I think, was brilliant for us as well. Probably that season he signed, he was a bit unknown,
Hmm.
had a few injuries, but then the League One season where we get promoted, he was brilliant. Like that was credit to him because he was one of those strikers you could play up front on his own, and he would chase everything down. And a 70-30 ball in a defender's favour, he'd end up getting it, or he would end up getting us up the pitch by winning us a throw in or a corner. And he was brilliant for us that season. Ross would be up there as well. I think Dan Neil, he's obviously now captain of the team. And I didn't play loads with Dan, but someone that I always thought he was one of the players that I looked at and I thought, like he's got a real chance of making it here. Really good kid, level-headed, really good ability, wants to learn. Yeah, so probably, I mean, because I spent majority of my career at Sunderland in League One, so it'd be difficult for me to talk about Championship or that season of Championship. There's probably no point in talking about that.
think it's, a few decent players that you've picked there, mate. I'm not going to disagree with you, but I want to take you back to when you did join Sunderland. I remember it quite vividly. You'd had a really good season on loan at Preston. You'd obviously worked under Simon Grayson. Then Simon Grayson moves to Sunderland and he made you, I feel like it was your first signing that you made. I could be wrong with that, but when did you hear about the interest from Sunderland? And, at the time, I'm pretty certain we weren't the only club that would have been interested. So why was Sunderland the choice?
To be honest, Sunderland was the choice. Sunderland only came about really when Simon Grayson had left Preston, so I kind of agreed to sign for Preston after that season. I still had a year left of my contract at Everton, but I wanted to stay at Preston. And then Preston started kind of trying to change the deal slightly by wanting to take me back on loan for that final season, as opposed to just paying a fee for me. Everton were like, well, no, you have to buy him. So that kind of put a little bit of a stumbling block, and that kind of it dragged on a little bit that way. And then obviously when Simon went to Sunderland, they phoned me straight away and he was like, "Do you want to come to Sunderland?" And I was like, "Yeah." I mean, straight away I was like massive club with the potential, I think, to go straight back up. But that was my plan anyway, and that was what the thinking of what I thought everybody had at the club. But uh, it just came about that way. And as soon as interest from Sunderland came, I was like, "Yeah, let's get it sorted." So the only thing was I had to kind of get it sorted with Everton to that last year of my contract. But as soon as that happened, I wasn't going anywhere else.
You look at that season as a fan, and like, there's no getting around it. For me, probably the darkest period in our history, that particular season, because of what happened and how it happened. But I think you can't deny that it didn't coincide with, in my opinion, poor ownership and the things that were going on above the club.
Mm.
As a player, how much does poor ownership filter down to like the bones of a football club? As a player, do you feel that? Does it cause issues with the playing side of things, or do you just try
Uh,
and block it out?
yeah, listen, you're a football player at the end of the day, so you just have to do your job and just try and perform on the pitch. But like, I'm going back to that day that I signed. That I knew, like the day that I signed, or a couple of days later, I was like, no disrespect to the players that we're bringing in, but it was all loan players,
Mm.
young loan players, and there was a hangover effect of the Premier League from the season before, where you had a lot of players who were on, good contracts who probably didn't want to play in the Championship, and that is poor. That's historically poor ownership. That's what that is. That's poor recruitment. That's poor. That's poor. Succession planning. That's what that is, because you're left over with you get relegated and you're left with players who don't want to play in the Championship, who are on big money, who then want to leave, and you can't really get them out. So then end up maybe playing, but they're not really bothered because they don't want to play. So that is how it can affect it. That's how it can affect the team. And you've got lads in the dressing room who don't want to be there, and who aren't doing as much as they can to try and help the team. It was plain as the nose in your face when I was seeing it every day in training. Attitude, and look, it's not every single player was like that, but that is, like I said, that is poor ownership, and that does filter down to the players, so it can become hard that way. And then you've got the pressure of all the fans and the outside media saying Sunderland need to go straight back up, and I'm looking around the team and I'm being totally honest with myself and going, we're not going straight back up here. We're not going straight back up here with this squad. It's as simple as that. And listen, I wasn't wrong, because I think I went with the best intention. I think this will be absolutely amazing. We'll go straight back up. Everybody's got the right idea. We're going to have a right go, because most clubs that get relegated do that, and then they bounce straight back up. Most of them do. But when we played Celtic that game, when we lost 5-0, that was kind of like, for me, I was going, whoa, this is going to be a long, hard season. This is going to be a really, really hard season. And ultimately, yeah, that's the way it turned out to be, which is, yeah, it's criminal. It's criminal, if I'm being totally honest.
I think it dawned on me. I think the first three games, correct me if I'm wrong, but we drew with Derby, played quite well on Sky. Then we went to Norwich and won 3-1. And then I feel like we drew at Sheffield and Sheffield scored late. And then we got beat off Leeds. And then things went downhill. But
Yeah,
I don't think for a long time, up until maybe, I feel it was when we drew 3-3 with Bolton, which was like October. So a few months later, in November time, I started going, oh, hang on a minute. This isn't promotion. This is the other way. This
Mm.
could potentially be relegation.
So you clicked on a wee bit later then, because I clicked on well before that.
Did I was going to say,
well,
when did
well
it click
before
for you? When did it click for you
that.
that that was a relegation battle, not a promotion battle?
Like you're saying, the other games that you're mentioning, after the Norwich game, after the Sheffield Wednesday game, I thought they were good results because we had quite a tough start. You had Derby, you
Yeah,
had Sheffield Wednesday, you had Norwich. But a tough start. I think we got, what was that, 5 points in the first
five
three
points.
games. I was like, that's not a bad start. I think maybe this could be different. And then after that, Leeds, like you said, Leeds, I think we lost 2-0. And the atmosphere in the stadium after we lost was really was quite toxic because we played really poorly. But then after that, if I'm being totally honest, it was just probably maybe a month later, 2 months later. It was the amount of games that were drawn, the amount
Yeah,
of goals we were giving away. Maybe the Barnsley game, maybe the Barnsley game away, where the fans were really on the team and really on Simon Grayson as well. There was a lot of abuse getting directed towards us, which was absolutely fine because it was warranted. But it was maybe after the Barnsley game, I was like, we can't be losing to Barnsley away. Like we can't be. You just everybody can beat you on any given day in that league, but Barnsley can't. We can't go to Barnsley and be absolutely turned over. Like they were the far better team. So it was probably then maybe Brentford after that as well. I think we
yeah.
2-1 up,
3-1 up.
3-1 up with like maybe 10 minutes to go, and we end up drawn 3-all. And I was like, oh, this is a problem. We're conceding way too many goals and we're giving away easy goals. And I was like, if this continues for the season, this isn't going to be good.
It was the Ipswich game, the 5-2, I think, as well. That was kind of a big
Yeah,
warning
I
point, I
mean, there's
think.
there's probably about 40 games that season you could probably talk about. If I'm being honest. So
There was.
yeah, Ipswich away as well. That was another one where that was like after the game we were going, this is this is going to be really difficult this season. But obviously the onus was to just try and then change our mindset to going right. We'll try and manage expectations of how to just stay in the league. But again, nobody wants to hear that though. Nobody wants to hear that because everybody involved and round about the club thinks someone should be challenging for promotion. And I was kind of having like, if I met fans or if I met someone in the street and they were talking about it, I would be like, maybe need to manage your expectations a wee bit because I don't think this is going to be a team that's going to be competing for promotion. And then obviously after that, it can turn very quickly in terms of the whole atmosphere around everything. Like you said, the ownership, the squad, the personalities that we had, the fans being unhappy with the ownership as well, and the fans being unhappy how the team were performing. That first season was just an absolute season to forget
Yeah.
from any which way you want to look at it.
I do want to move on quickly from it, and I certainly don't want to ask you about Netflix because it's been covered in total. But someone did ask one of the lads to do the podcast with the Netflix documentary you've done to
Mm.
death. We all know about it. But do you realize how iconic the kind of scene of you being pelted with snowballs is in terms of like the actual quotes, the Gimp's little girls, how much of a meme that is still used to this day? Do you realize
Yes,
that?
I don't. I'm not on. Listen, I'm not on Twitter or anything like that. But some people do send me it sometimes. Yeah, I don't. I know. I'm not aware of how iconic it is. No, it's just it was one of those things where it kind of it's funny. It is funny, but then again, nowadays you're going, can you say that sort of stuff? Do you know what I mean? Everybody's got a problem with everything these days, and any free speech. If you say something that offends someone, but no, I didn't know that. But quite a few people have sent it to me in the past, and it was just an off the cuff moment where the young lads were all absolutely trying to take the piss out of us and trying to batter us. But no, it was funny. It was funny. Yeah, but maybe one of the highlights of that season.
Yeah, that probably was, mate, to be fair. Looking back to that period where we did get relegated and we changed ownership, you had Ella Short beforehand who didn't even have interaction with the managers, allegedly, with Coleman and Grayson. Then you had Stuart Donald and Charlie Methven who were like active on Twitter, so it was very, very different. But as you as a player, like an experienced pro, obviously I would at that time our best player as well, I would say. Did you have any interaction with either of the owners? And if so, how did you find them as people?
Uh, no, with Ella Short, I met him once, so it was that. It was actually the Derby game.
Hmm.
Uh, and look, you don't have to meet owners. I don't think owners have to be that present either. That's the thing. I only met him once. It was a Derby game. I spoke to him once, and then after that, I never seen him again. And then obviously they sold to Stuart Donald, and a kind of new consortium came in, not consortium, but there was new people in the building. Uh, when Stuart and that came in, I did think, look, I'm not. I don't think I'm naive enough to think that everybody. Let's be totally honest. Most people did get sucked in by how they were. I like Stuart. I think Stuart. I think Stuart's. I've got a lot of time for him. I think he had the right intentions for the club. Not out. I don't think not out to completely make money. Just he did want the best for the club. Whereas I think other people who were involved at the time weren't of the same mindset. But the whole thing about getting the fans to replace the seats and stuff like that, and then we were part of that as well. I remember, like, it was good. Listen, they were quite clever with it because it did, in a way, it did bridge that gap between the fans and the players, and almost give the fans a bit of a sense as if to say we're getting our club back in a way, because the seats were, the pink seats getting changed back to red and white. But I remember leaving that day and going, "There's nobody seen this. Like, they're basically getting the fans to do the work for free. It's going to cost 175 grand, 200 grand. They're basically getting the fans to do it for free." I just remember that. I thought, it's fine. It is what it is. It's fine. But it was a money saving exercise. Like, let's be totally honest. And we were part of it as well. We spent like half a day doing it as well as players after training one day. And I'm like, shouldn't really be doing this. Like, if I'm being totally honest, like, you shouldn't really be changing seats as a player. Yeah, but it was this whole, we're going to change the narrative of the club. The last few seasons were new ownership. I got on well with Stuart, and it was just I wasn't too keen on the way Charlie was about the place. If I'm being honest, it was almost as if he was the owner, and then I found out he only had a little bit of the club. He had like 5% because he introduced Ellis Short to Stuart Donald, and I remember saying, because there was a few people who had some issues with Charlie. The way that he conducted himself, the way that he kind of had meetings, and you've probably seen the things on Netflix and stuff, the way that he kind of spoke to people and stuff. And I was like, well, you do realise if he's only got a certain percentage of shares, you can stop him from coming in. And they're like, "Oh no, we can't. He's one of the owners." And I was like, "Well, I've got shares in Apple, but I can't walk into an Apple building and just take a desk and start conducting meetings." It was kind of like that. A big show, if I'm being honest. A big show, in my opinion. And then, look, but see, to be honest, I can't really say anything bad because, listen, I understand corners had to be cut and we had to downsize. And listen, unfortunately, people had to lose their jobs. That's the thing about relegation, which was the hardest thing. People end up losing their jobs. People made redundant, so they do have to save money. So I understand that as well. And listen, we were very, very close to getting promoted. We should have been promoted, but. We kind of blew it before 5 games to go. Yeah, it's funny though, because I remember having a discussion with Charlie. I mean, people probably know that I'm quite honest. If I'm being quite honest, maybe my deliveries maybe quite blunt. If I'm being maybe
I like it
to my detriment as well, but it's also probably one of my strengths. But I remember we were training, and again, this was Charlie in a bit of a nutshell. Like, but everything was kind of for show, where he was always like, walking into the first team canteen, with a pair of shorts on that he'd just been at the gym, and just everything was always kind of almost a little bit, "Look at me, yeah, I know it's not amazing, is it?" But he turned up to training one day in the helicopter landed on the training pitch, just at the side of the training pitch, and then he comes out and he comes away up to the canteen, and he was standing there, and I went, "Oh, who's paying for the helicopter?" And he was like, "Oh, it's the club." And I went, "Right, okay." I was like, "People are losing their jobs left, right and centre, and you're turning up to train in a helicopter." I went, "I don't think it looks very good." And he was like, "Oh, Stuart's paid for it anyway." And I went, "Well, regardless, it's still the club that's paying for it. It's not, Stuart's not paying for it. I mean, the club will still be paying for it." I went, "I don't think that's a great look, Charlie." And he was like, "Oh, right, okay, well, you can do what you want when you're not club." It was kind of like that, almost as if, well, I can do what I want because yeah. Yeah, it wasn't amazing, but I chinned him on it anyway. I thought, I need to say something because everybody was talking about it, and I was like, he's just jumped out of a helicopter, and people are getting made redundant. I was like, it's absolutely terrible look, and it's actually disrespectful. So I went off a bit of a tangent there about the ownership and stuff. But listen, the ownership for me, they were good. They were good when I was there. I can't say anything really bad about them. Aside from maybe the biggest problem was letting Maja go.
Yeah,
that was the biggest problem. Allowing Maja to go, and understand as well there was money owed Bordeaux for Wabi Kazri, and that was the whole thing. So Maja went to Bordeaux, that was cancelled, there wasn't any payment made, but I was just like, please don't sell him. I was like, if we keep him, we'll get promoted. Is that not what everybody wants? And then it was like they ended up selling him, and I was just like, oh god, this is going to be a this will be difficult. Or we need someone else to uh, fill that gap of him of his for however many goals he scored up to that point.
And we didn't quite manage to do that. But look, through that
No, no.
season, I think, rightly or wrongly, if someone says to me, Aiden McGeady and Sunderland memories, the Wembley game, the first one, you can't really deny it. It's weird because in the context of Sunderland's history, the Checkatrade Trophy is probably not up there, but I think we'd had so many years of like shit
Mm-hmm.
that it felt like a weekend where you could kind of enjoy being part of Sunderland again. And obviously, you were a massive part of that. Massive atmosphere from both fans, to be fair. First goal goes in. Look, the first goal's obviously a better goal. For me, I was right behind the goal for the second one, and I just remember the noise and kind of the experience of it. And it was weird. It was like you'd lost a Checkatrade Trophy final, so you could kind of get over it. But the day felt like the first time in a while that Sunderland had something to celebrate. What was the entire weekend for you, and what was that noise like when the first and the second one went in for you?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because like I think the same when I go to the Checkatrade. It's the Papa John's, whatever it is. It's not a trophy that you're going to think about in the future, but it was probably the atmosphere that day that led it into being such a memorable experience. Like 80,000 fans, half and half, Sunderland and Portsmouth, and to get that many fans for a League One trophy essentially, a League One under 21s trophy was unbelievable. But it was like you said, it's something not to celebrate, but it was like had a lot of close misses and near misses at Wembley, and it was a chance to win a trophy. But it was one of those games where we played well. First half we were really good. Then we kind of started to sit back, soak up a bit of pressure. Then you just felt a goal was coming, and then but that atmosphere, I don't think I'll ever forget it when I scored that second goal. Like last few minutes extra time to get the equal. Was that the last minute of full time or was that last minute extra time?
Last minute of extra time because it
Yeah,
was
last minute extra
we
time. I mean,
we all went mad, and then you kind of went, oh shit, penalties.
I know that, but I mean that was what we were all thinking as well. But like, well, we've just came back. We'll probably win on penalties. We should have. Well, listen, it's 50-50, isn't it, with penalties? But
Yeah.
just that, I look back at that, and it's still whenever I see videos of it, and I've scored like Charlie's knocked the ball down to me, and I've faked a defender, and then put it by him, and it's just rolled across the line, isn't it? And the camera goes, and the camera starts shaking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Just because of the atmosphere, and there's that many people jumping up and down. It still gives me kind of goosebumps when I think about it, and whenever I see it, it was yeah, listen, it was amazing. It was one of those amazing days. Well, it wasn't amazing because we lost, right? But it was one of those things where I think maybe the fans felt, we're kind of back to like we're a proper club. We're back to being a proper club again. That was
Yeah.
the way I felt it. That was the way I felt it. It came across anyway. That's what it felt like to me.
No, it definitely did. And it was like, look, in the context of probably, like you say, the trophy, which is probably something we should never be in. But at the same time, it was we'd had such a difficult few years, and it was just a really nice day with two great goals to celebrate. But we went back literally a few months later, and that day was a little bit different. But, I don't want to talk about the result and how you felt after the game and stuff like that. What I'm curious about is you'd been like our star player that year. Then it gets to the playoffs and you broke your foot, or
Hmm.
something's gone wrong with your foot.
Hmm.
I remember you coming on, and I was sat with my fiance at the time, and I remember you coming on, and I remember just thinking, I wonder how fit he actually is. And then it came out afterwards, you had injections and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Because of your importance to the team, like how fit actually were you for that game?
Oh no, like in terms of fitness, yeah, I was fit in terms of cardio, and fitness in terms of heart and lung. I was fit. If I could run, I would be fit. But the only problem was I couldn't run because my foot was so bad. So I broke the bone, the two wee bones in my foot, the bottom of my foot, and then played
Mhm.
Accrington Stanley away. Uh, and it was one of them. It was either I don't play from now till the end of the season, or I try and maybe play towards the end of the season, but with injections. So tried to do that because I was like, listen, the manager was absolutely fine. The manager was brilliant. He was like, listen, it's entirely up to you. He was like, if it's up to me, he said, I would love you to play, but I don't want you to do anything to your foot. I don't want you to risk increasing injury or being out for any longer length of time. And I was like, look, I want to try and do everything I can to try and help the team to try and get promoted. That's what everybody wants. So if you need me, I'm there. So he was like, listen, it's entirely up to you then. So you just tell me what you want to do. So I was like, look, it's probably best, because I started trying to train maybe just a few days before the game. So I would kind of have like Monday to Wednesday, not really doing anything, just kind of doing gym work. And then maybe the Thursday, Friday, I would try and the doc would give me an injection to try and train. And it got to the point I was like, listen, doc, I can't even put any weight in my foot. I can't, this is pointless. And then I tried it for the Portsmouth game, the first leg.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't complete the warm-up. Then Chrissy came in the starting lineup. Chris Maguire came in the starting lineup for me, and then he scored the goal. And so I didn't go to the return leg, thinking hopefully we've got another 2-3 weeks maybe, because it was a bit of a gap between the first leg and in Wembley. I thought maybe I've got another 2 weeks maybe of this could help me. We obviously got to the playoff final, and then that day, the kind of days leading up to it, again, it was the same. I tried to train and I just couldn't train. And I was kind of like, look, Gaffer, it's like, I'll be there if you need me to be there. But hopefully, I was like, listen, hopefully we don't need to use me. I was like, hopefully you don't need to use me. We win 3-0 and that's brilliant. And he was like, no, that's absolutely fine. And then I took an injection before the game. And it's basically an injection, literally a needle in the bottom of your foot. You know, like literally in the bottom of your foot, like an anaesthetic to numb the pain, to just basically so your foot's numb. So I got one before the game, and then I got two at half time. And then see the way the game was going after half time, I could see Jack saying to me, go and get warmed up. And I was like, right, okay. So I was absolutely fine with that. But listen, I wasn't anywhere near close to being able to do what I could do. But I think he thought, listen, if you can give us something, that might help us win the game. He was willing to risk me for it. And yeah, and I was the same. I wasn't saying don't put me on. I was like, yeah, I'll come on. But I was nowhere near. I was nowhere near what I was able to do. I was nowhere close to it.
After that, I think there was rumours that Jack then goes, Phil Parkinson comes in and stuff like that. Don't really want to talk about that too much. I feel you've covered that as well, to be completely honest. But there's one thing I did want to touch on, and it's more at the time I remember it happening. Remember the photo of you and Chris Maguire
Mm-hmm.
after Gillingham?
How could I forget that one?
Oh, mate. Now, look, I'll give you a bit of an insight. Like, I've got, not at the same level, but I've got a family member who's played professional football, and he was doing his nutting when it happened, because he was like, well, you're getting your calories back in your body. You've just done, training, you've done stuff like that. This is such a normal thing. I'm shocked it's not a full pizza, but we all know what social media can be like, unfortunately. Chris Maguire used to get stick anyway because of his character and stuff like that. What was that like when that came out? Like, I can imagine you thinking just, oh, hey.
To be honest, it didn't really bother me. Like, everybody can have their opinion, and listen, football people don't know football. Everybody thinks they do, but nobody really does, unless you're actually a footballer. Unless you're in the inside the dressing room, you don't know. Everybody in the team did it. Do you know what I meant? The most. I'll get onto it, right? But the maddest thing for me, and the most maddening thing for me, was me and him sat down, because we were the first to sit down. There was 8 other players there who literally sat down 2 minutes later, 30 seconds later. John McLaughlin, Denver Hume, Charlie White, everybody sat down. And then it was me and Chrissy, the guy. I could tell, because I think I'm quite perceptive, but I could tell there was a guy hanging about, this kind of young boy hanging about, kind of looking over, kind of by the McDonald's machine, where you order.
Yeah.
He was hanging about in a kind of bit of a cagey way, and I thought, it's a bit weird. And then he kind of then got his stuff and then left. I was like to Chris, did you see that guy there? So it was a bit weird. And then obviously half an hour later, whatever it is, the picture came out, and I was like, that was that guy taking a picture. I was like, he was obviously taking a picture, like, slyly. But see, to be honest, it didn't bother me, right? But the only thing that bothered me is, like, see, after that on the Monday, that was when I came in and Phil Parkinson told me that I wasn't going to play anymore. And then everybody starts putting that with that as well. Mm-hmm. So, and I wasn't allowed to have my say back either, because I wasn't allowed to talk out, because if I spoke out, I'm getting fined a week's wages or 2 weeks' wages. And then Phil Parkinson bins me off. Everybody then tied rumours, attitude, whatever they wanted to say, because there wasn't actually any story. No one knew what had happened with me and Phil Parkinson. So everybody put that to it. And then when I get binned off, Chrissy started playing again, and Chrissy started doing well. And I was like to him, how come it's only me who gets labelled the McDonald's stuff? I went, how did you get away with it?
Maybe you didn't like your order.
It stuck with me, so for the next 6 months or whatever, when I went on loan to Charlton, came back, for the next 6 months, it was like, anytime I would see my name mentioned anywhere, you would then have everybody right, no, he's probably at McDonald's again, or he's saying stuff like this, and that's football, right, Baz? I wasn't the only one there. There was 10 other players there. But yeah, listen, that's the way football is. I mean, we stop, because every away game with Sunderland is more, as a minimum 2.5 hours, unless you're playing Middlesbrough or Newcastle. So for us, we had lots and lots of long bus journeys, especially that League One season, because they stopped obviously flying and stuff like that. So we had a lot of long bus journeys, but it was a bus driver. Again, you might not know, maybe you do know this, but the coach driver can't drive for any more than 3 hours without
Yeah.
taking a break. So every away game, we would have to take a break and jump into the services, and then most people would go off the bus and go and get a coffee, or go and get a sandwich, or go and get a McDonald's, or go and get a Burger King. That happened every game. So there was a big mess made of it, and a big song and dance made of it when it was absolutely nothing. And it had nothing to do with me either, getting binned off either, I don't think. But everybody tied it to that. So
No, it's funny. We had Dylan McGeady on the pod not long after it happened. When you were at the time, you were still dropped by Parkinson at the time, and I asked him, and he went, "I don't know. Like, I don't know why he was dropped. Not
yeah,
sure." And like everyone said that, and I think you've covered it fairly well. But looking at when you came back in the team, I remember the day really clearly because I was in Govan Hill getting a coffee on Vicky Road, and it comes up on Twitter like that you're back in the team, and it's quite a shock because you've been out for like a year in terms of playing
mhm,
for Sunderland. You'd kind of gone,
yeah.
oh fucking hell, like Geets is back. The weird thing about it is, if that happens now, if that's, in this day and age, you kind of go, oh, brilliant, go to the game, you get welcome back, you get to feel that buzz around it, that excitement. But I kind of forget that the game was behind closed doors and I'm watching it on a
Yeah.
screen. You'd had all that time out, and then you come back and you can probably feel the buzz on social media and you can feel the buzz around the club that you're back, but you haven't got anyone there to kind of celebrate it with. How weird was that period coming back to the team that you always wanted to do, but to no one really?
Yeah, it was strange. But see, to be honest, in a way, it maybe helped me as well, because not having any fans in, I'm not saying that helped, but I'm saying it not drew less pressure to me. But I was a bit unsure of how coming straight back in, because you never know, you don't know what it's like. It might be half the fans are with you, half the fans are against you, whatever. I don't know, but I could just kind of concentrate on my football and not have to worry about any outside noise, if I'm being honest. But it was disappointing that you couldn't come back and the fans were there to kind of welcome you back to the team, which I think probably would have happened.
Totally.
Um, yeah, it was just it happened so quickly. I hadn't played for a year. Yeah, I hadn't played for a year, but I could see, like, I could see when the whole time I was out, and then when Parkinson was trying to get me to leave. Listen, he tried everything to get me to leave. Tried absolutely everything. I mean, I was doing. Ultimately, I ended up speaking to Stuart Donald, because we hadn't really had any interaction. He just, obviously, he was backing the manager. He was backing Phil Parkinson at the time, because he's his manager. So I get that. So he kind of has to stick by the manager and his decisions. But when Phil Parkinson tried to get me to leave in the summer, I was like, well, no, I've got a year left in my contract, and I just went on loan to Charlton on my own during COVID. I said it was the worst experience of my life. I went, I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving just because it suits you. I said it loads of times to him. I was like, listen, I'll be here longer than you, so that's fine. And then he was like, oh no, you need to leave. I think it's best for everybody. And I was like, well, no, it's best for you. I went, it's not best for me. So I stayed. And then when the transfer window closed, I was waiting to see what they would do, because I thought, right, maybe they're just trying to get me out because the window's still open. But when the transfer window closed, I thought, right, let's see how they act now. And then I went to see the manager, and I was like, look, I think, like, I can see the team are struggling. You're struggling to create chances. You're struggling to score goals. I was like, look, see whatever's happened, right? I don't know what's happened. Like, I didn't know. I was like, I don't know what's happened. But see, if you want me to apologise to you in the press, if you want me to apologise to you in front of the players, I'll happily do that to carry on playing for Sunderland, because all I want to do is play. And he was like, right, let me think about it. And then he came back. I think I've probably covered it in other times I spoke about it, but he came back about a week later and he went, nah, nothing's changed, Aiden. You're still going to be with the 23s. And I was like, right, that's fine. So then I spoke to Stuart Donald, and I was kind of like, look, Stuart, what are we doing here? Like, what are we doing here? I says, you're paying me, you know, you're paying me a good wage, right, to not play. I was like, this isn't good for anybody. This isn't helping anybody whatsoever. And he didn't really know what had happened. He was like, oh, I thought this situation would have came to a head. I thought either the manager would have brought you back in or you would have left. He says, so we kind of need to address it now. And I was like, well, yeah. I said, that's all I want to do. So I think he spoke to Phil Parkinson and in a kind of soft way tried to kind of say, look, I think maybe you should start looking at bringing Aiden back in. I don't think Phil Parkinson wanted to do that, but I think he kind of was half told to do it. So the next day I had to go in for a meeting with him, and he was like, right, we're thinking about bringing you back with the first team, but I'm telling you, you need to be here. Like your fitness levels have to be here. And I was like, well, I've been training for the last 3 months with the resis, so I'm fit, yeah. Like, how fit do I need to be? And he was like, well, I need you to do a programme. So he wanted me to do a programme of like 3-4 weeks with the fitness coach. So I would train with the 23s, and then after the 23s had finished training, he would bring Nick Allenby over or Scott Ainsley to then I'd do a session on my own. So I would just do running after I trained. And one day, Nick Allenby phoned me and he was like, I have to come in at 2:00 today. These are all just trivial stories that in the grand scheme of things, but I went in at 2:00 and I was like, right, so I'm not training. He's like, no, we're doing a fitness test with you. And it was like a pre-season fitness run that you do. So it's like you do, yeah, and I was doing it on my own at 2:00 in the afternoon on the first team pitch. Just me, Nick Allenby, and then one of the physios I think was there. And I had to do three lengths of the pitch, like 1, 2, 3, and then jog back to the start. So I had to do, what would you say that is? That's 300 metres, and I think I had 90 seconds to do it. So 30 seconds. It's not too bad, right? But then you've also got to jog back to the start, and you have to do that. I had to do it 12 times. And I was like that, Nick. I was like, what is this, mate? Like, I was like, I think I know what's going on here. The manager's wanting me to fail this fitness test to be able to say to the owner, I can't use him, he's not fit. I went, I'm not daft. I went, I'll do it, no problem. I think I'd done like 7 runs, and then Nick was like, listen, it's fine. Like, you're cool. Like, we know you're fit. So, but then after that, nothing changed. Nothing changed whatsoever. I was still just, for about 3 weeks this went on, and then I went to see the manager, and I was like, what's going on here? He's like, no, I kept using this fitness thing. And I was like, hold on a second. I went, Elliot Embleton's been out injured for the whole pre-season. I went, he went straight back in training with the first team. I've been training with the reserves for 3 months. And I can't train because you're telling me I'm not fit enough. And he was like, yeah, but Embo, he started all these different excuses. And I went, listen, see, at the end of the day, I said, I can quite clearly see you don't want to bring me back. And you're maybe being told. And I think he was trying to drag out until maybe the window opened again. That was my thinking. And then luckily for me, he got the sack.
Yeah, I was going to say, look,
Yeah.
the time with Johnson you came in, I think what I really wanted to move on to was Alex Neil, which I know you didn't have a great deal of time with, but you worked under so many managers at Sunderland. I think it was 6 in total. You had Grayson, Coleman, Jack Ross, who obviously you got on really well with, Parky, who obviously you didn't, Johnson, who signed you twice, and then Alex Neil, who, unfortunately you didn't play under too often, but probably blasphemy saying this now, considering the way that he sort of left the club, but he did such a good job in getting us up, and he succeeded where others couldn't.
Uh-huh.
Why did Alex Neil? What was it that Alex Neil did that others couldn't to get Sunderland past that line?
He didn't do anything complicated. He went to a back three. Didn't do anything complicated. The first thing that he said, which I totally agreed with, was he showed us, I think when he first took over, he showed the stats of where we were ranking in the league on shots against and goals conceded, and we were like at the top of nearly every chart, near the top of every chart. And by the way, obviously I think we were still in the playoffs at the time. And he was like, it's dead simple for me, it's dead clear for me, we need to change and defend better. So that was all that he done. He went to a back three most of the time, a 3-5-2, if you want to call it. Most games anyway, and he just made us harder to beat. That was it. So I think from when he took over to getting promoted, we were conceding way less goals, and that was obviously the problem that happened under Lee Johnson. We were very, very expansive, and we could win, so we could beat Sheffield Wednesday 5-0 at home, and then we could lose 4-1 to Rotherham away the next game. We were probably too expansive. And all Alex Neil did was just make us harder to beat. That was it. And we had a little bit of luck along the way as well, a couple of last minute goals. But that was all. That was all. There wasn't anything complicated. It was just defend better.
Were you surprised when obviously I know he'd left the club at this point, but like everything that had gone on and the success of Wembley, which we'll talk about before we finish, but were you surprised that he left and went to Stoke?
No, I wasn't. No, I listen. I don't know Alex that well. We got on fine when he was there. I was injured pretty much the whole time. I didn't like the way it ended because I think I came back in training a couple of times and he was like, "Listen, don't rush back because just get yourself fit for the end of the season or for whenever you're fit. And listen, I know how good you are. Listen, you'll play games." And I think it was the last game of the season against Morecambe away.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah,
that was the first time I think I'd been on the bench, and 15 minutes to go, 10 minutes to go, I think he went and put Dan Neil on as like a number 10, and I didn't even get warmed up, and I was like, right, it's a bit strange. So I was like, right, it is what it is, it's fine. There's still the playoffs to go. And then I was on the bench the Sheffield Wednesday game, the first game in the playoff, and I was an unused sub again. I was unused sub again, and again I was like, this probably will be my last ever game at the Stadium of Light. Could you not put me on for 5 minutes? Like I almost felt it was disrespectful. Listen, he's the manager, so he decided what he wanted to do. Maybe he thinks, oh, Aiden's not fit enough or whatever, I want to put another defender on. That's his decision. But if I'm the manager and I've got a player who has played quite a few years at the club and this might be his last game at the Stadium of Light, I just stuck him on for 2 minutes. But then I never came on, so I was a little bit annoyed about that. And then the second leg against Sheffield Wednesday, I get completely left out the squad, and I was like, 4 weeks ago you were telling me just don't rush back from injury, just get yourself fit. I went down, being left out the squad. So he called me in. He called me in the day of the game. I had a phone call at my room, during the afternoon, and I was like, well, this can't be good, because he was like, what's it? It's the gaffer. Can you come down and speak to me? And I was like, right, okay, this won't be good. So then he told me he was leaving me out, and I was just like, right. So I didn't fall out with him or anything. I just went, right, okay. Supported the lads in the best way that I could. We won the game and obviously went to Wembley. But the thing is, I was training really, really well, and I was trying my best. I wasn't down in tools. I was trying my best and training every day. I was just trying to get, I knew I wasn't going to start in the playoff final, but I thought I want to be in the squad. I want to try and come on. And to be fair, he pulled me right before the game, and I went. I started laughing. I went, "Oh, here we go." He went, "Oh no, it's not that. I'm not leaving you out. I'm putting you in the bench. But listen, I'm leaving Jack Clark out, so I want you to kind of help him because he'll be disappointed and stuff." And I was like, "Right, that's fine." And then obviously the game went the way it did. We played well, 1-2-0. But sorry, I'm going off on one here about my time at the last few games at Sunderland. But he put Nathan Broadhead on with 5 minutes to go, and Brody had one hammy. Brody had one hammy at the time. Genuinely had one hamstring, and I was like, right, maybe he's done that to try and get Nathan for next season, to try and convince him maybe sign permanently next season. I don't know, but I was like, it's Wembley, it's a lot. I even felt awkward. I felt awkward even in the celebrations because I hadn't played, and I was like, God, this is the moment you wait for. I've waited for so long, and then to not even come on as a sub, I was like, this is a bit. Like you're still buzzing for the lads, and you're still buzzing. You've been promoted, but I didn't. You never feel part of it if you're a sub, and I knew I was leaving as well. I knew I was going to leave, so yeah, it was a bit disappointing. It was disappointing that I never got to experience it and get even 5 minutes at the end of the game to come on. But again, they're the manager's decisions. He lives and dies by the decisions he makes. So, but sorry, going on to that, you're talking about I'm leaving. No, I wasn't surprised because when he came in, I think being totally honest, I think Alex was a footballer for the majority of his career at Hamilton, and the most amount of success he's had is as being a manager. And the kind of whole time I was thinking, I think he signed like a rolling contract, didn't he? So straight away I was like, that helps him and by the way, it helps the club as well to an extent. But it's on rolling contracts always probably in favour of the manager if he's successful. And when we got promoted, I was like, that's great, we've been promoted, the other club's been promoted, but I think if a bigger offer comes in, I was like, I could see him leaving. That was my opinion, and yeah, that happened, didn't it?
Yeah, sadly for me, mate, I was at Stoke as well, and a week later he's their manager. But it's all worked out. It's all been fine. I've got a couple more for you. I was going to ask,
Mhm.
about your emotions after the game, but you've kind of covered that.
Yeah, no, I was
Um,
listening. I was buzzing. The emotions after the game. I was buzzing for the team. I was buzzing that we'd done it finally. But it was tinged with a bit of
you know,
disappointment as well because I hadn't played for a few months, and then I didn't play any role in any of the playoff games. I was on the bench, then I was in the stand, then I was on the bench, and so yeah, it was disappointing.
it was another one because we remember it. I mean, obviously you met myself and my fiance, and we sat next to each other at that game, and at the end we kind of went, ah, McGeady's not come on, and we kind of thought like we had a similar feeling because we kind of figured that would be it. But look, when you look back through your time at Sunderland, there's probably only one player that, well, not only one player because he joined the season before him, but Luke O'Nien is probably the only one that's left in the squad from that very, very first season that you had
Mm-hmm.
was, second season that you had with Sunderland.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it you feel like O'Nien is the one that's had like that staying power from? Because I mean, if you remember the first game, he got subbed off. He was poor by his
Yeah.
own admission. What do you think, from what you know of him playing alongside of him, it still makes him like a pivotal part of our squad, despite kind of the outlook of the team and the squad and whatnot?
Well, look, I think Luke's probably one of them where I think he probably would admit that himself. He's probably gets the most out of what he's got. He works really, really hard every day. What works at different parts of his game, and he's a model professional. Do you know what I mean? He's in early every day, and he does work really hard, and he wants to do as much as he can to improve himself. But I think what probably has helped him be a pivotal part of the team for the last few years, and like you said, staying power there. There's probably a few things going on. It's probably his age, probably has helped him. And then when you're looking at the squad, for how many players that they've let go who've been older and experienced, he would then be the next one. If he wasn't there anymore, who else is in the squad that has that experience of 3, 4, 5 years at Sunderland? Uh, the fact as well, probably he's versatile and he can play in a lot of different positions. I think has obviously helped them as well. And uh, yeah, I think obviously the fans really like him too. So all these things help. So I don't think it's complicated as to why that's happened. I think it's a mixture of all those different things.
I think final question for me, look, when as people know, I think who know me personally, we bumped into each other in Greaves, and I'm not going to lie, I was kind of taken back how much you were happy to talk about Sunderland and how much Sunderland seemed to have an effect on you. And then I thought about your career, like when I was writing the questions for this, and I thought you played the Champions League, you played for the club that you supported as a boy, you've played in Old Firm games, you've won leagues, you've won titles, you've won cups, you've got 93 international caps, and despite all that, from our conversation and also from the things you see when you scored goals in the years we were with us, it felt like Sunderland got under your skin, despite
Mm-hmm.
how popular your career was. What did your time at Sunderland mean to you?
No, it was one of the best. Yeah, if you go back in my career, you probably say the three places that I played four places that I enjoyed playing the most would have been Celtic, Spartak, Preston, and Sunderland. But the most amount of time that I spent at either club was Sunderland and Celtic. And listen, I was more. I loved the area. I loved staying there. I got on really well with the people at the club. I loved the area, the warmth of the people in the northeast, which I think is totally different to the further south you go down. Uh, the impact it had on me, the fact that the club was massive, and I think the League One season when we had 40, 42,000, 43,000 Boxing Day against Bradford, doesn't happen in League One. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't happen. Massive showcase for the club that day, but just everything about the club, to be honest with you, I loved it there. I loved it, and see, to be honest, I'd have loved to have stayed. I'd have loved to have stayed there, and played for the next couple of years at Sunderland if I could. And even then, if I wasn't going to be a mainstay in the team anymore, but I'd have loved to have stayed there and helped in any way that I could progress the kind of younger players in the team, where you have a bit of an influence on them, and or even just any members of the team. Yeah, no, I did get under my skin, and that's why I still follow the team. I still watch the games when I can. I still follow every result, and still trying to find out what's going on with the team. Yeah, no, yeah, one of the best periods of my career, I think. No, obviously, it's the fact we were in League One for the majority of the time was disappointing, but and every year I kept going. There was always rumours of me leaving and going to other teams and stuff, but I was like, nah, I want to be part of this team that gets promoted and experience that, because I think everybody deserves it, especially when you've went from the Championship and you've actually been through the bad times. No, like I loved it, like, everything about it. Like obviously there was some difficult times, of course, as well. You know, when you don't play for a year, and yeah, I fall out with a manager and things like that. But 99% of it was brilliant. Like I love playing at Stadium of Light. I had a great rapport with the fans. I got on well with nearly everybody at the club, staff, players. I loved it. It was brilliant place to play, brilliant place to enjoy your football, go to work, and yeah, just privileged to say that I was able to do it, and I suppose be successful to an extent. So no, like I loved it there, and hopefully that comes across in this interview of how much I did enjoy my time at Sunderland.
Yeah, I think it does, mate. Thanks very much for doing it, though. I appreciate it.
No worries at all. No worries.